Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. I am modifying a deck that is unused, unloved, and turning it into something more playful and I hope more powerful in the way that it communicates. So I'm actually taking some square cards from the Avalon of Oracle cards that I wasn't using. I didn't vibe with it. And so basically what you need are some of these pinchers because you got to keep your blade here sharp. I'm cutting it by hand with this blade. Yeah, I looked online for some circle cutters. Didn't find anything that looked like it would cut through the thickness of these oracle cards. So I've got a stack here that I'm probably not going to use, but that shows you what the back looks like. Those are the fronts. These are the ones that I've cut already. And I'm going to save these for a little bit because they do have the words for the divination on them. So those are all there. These are some close-ups then of how the squares are becoming circles. And it is relaxing. And I'll just put this camera into the holder and show you how I'm doing it. It's not brain surgery, it's fun. So what I think you need is a deck that's unused, unloved. That's the first thing. And be willing to, make some mistakes on it, lose some cards, but gain something in the process, I hope. Because here is what I'm using as my template. So all I'm doing, if I can get the light so that you can actually see, is I'm looking at the border down inside here, and I'm using, as I say, this inner circle as my template. So I'm just positioning it over there. I'm checking left and right to see if I'm fairly centered. Then I'm just taking a pencil and going all around. It works easier on the lighter cards because you can actually see then the pencil line. And that's where you're going to be dragging your knife along and slicing into it. And you end up with the backs looking like this, basically. Now, some of them I moved up a little bit so I could get more of the image, and some I moved down. So the backs are not going to all be identical, but I read the fronts, not the backs. So that doesn't bother me. And the other thing you need is, you can get these at the dollar store, just an X-Acto blade. And every once in a while you're going to have to, you can see the dividing lines there. You're going to have to snap off one of those to get a sharper edge again. And this is where this tool comes in. I can just place it on top and snap. But this one is fairly new. So a pencil, a blade, something that you can use as a template, and you can change your unused decks into something way more fun. And of course you'll need something to cut on. And this is one of those self-healing boards. So I'm just going to see if I can show you, get it into position from the other angle because I'm right-handed, and we'll get this thing cut. So this is my B card, and it says luck, industriousness, and sweet victory. So we are being a little bit industrious here. So I just put my blade down where the line is, hoping that you can see, and I just apply some pressure, and it's a matter of just twisting and letting your hand follow the line. It does take quite a bit of pressure. You can't do a whole bunch at once, maybe half a dozen, maybe 8, because your knuckles get a little bit sore. But the idea is that also have a good light so that you can see where you're heading into. So I'm going to turn that light back on. It's going to give you a little bit of a glare, but it allows me to see where I'm going. And I just got to keep my eyes on the pencil line that I created. I did look at some of the Frisker cutters online, but it seemed like they weren't getting a really good cut on some of the card stock. But I'd love to have some sort of a mechanism, more like a stamp, I guess, that you could pull down and cut through this. So basically, that's what you get. And there's the back, as I say, but it does leave a little bit of an edge pushed up. So I just twirl it and push the edge back down again with my fingernail. And if there are any spots that are a little bit wonky, I just go over them again and brush them up. But you know, there's my bee. It still has the same symbolism to it that was suggested in the making of the card. And I still have the book, but I can intuitively now try to read the cards. And for me, the whole thing really is, I've been hunting for round cards. Turn this light off. In that I like the way that, you know, you can get some directional things happening when you're reading. And it just depends which way the card information is sitting. So if this guy was tilting towards here, you could bring in the symbology of the bee along with this. And, you know, maybe there's something sweet happening. He's got his instrument here, something really wonderful about to occur. And then you've got this eagle or the swan, whichever way it appears. And, you know, it's just a new way of reading. And it all stems from reading from the teacup cards. So if these birds were maybe like this, there'd be a lack of communication because they're not really looking towards each other and talking. But this instance maybe is being elevated because you've got the eagle soaring up above. And as I say, the backs are not all going to be identical because I did switch the border around a little bit. But how fun for me this has been is incredible because now I've got something a little bit different than the teacup cards that I can play with. There are some really nice hermit type card in here. You've got some fairy ladies. And, you know, the only thing that holds you back is your imagination. So why are we hanging on to some of these decks that no longer, you know, turn our crank? And rather than passing them on, can we give them a life once again, somehow by cutting our cards into something more playful? Now, these ones didn't really work for me. The image wasn't really showing up, but if I wanted to, I could use these, certainly. So no, I'm not playing with a full deck here. I am choosing which one is going to go into my oracle. This one probably will, the queen. Kind of like her. But the dog, you know, it didn't really fit. I'd have to come up so high. But I can skim a little bit of his head and maybe get him in. I'm not so sure if I want the frog in, but it is a possibility. There's some cards in here that I questioned when I first got it because it's about Avalon. And I'm like, well, what does the frog have to do? Well, cleaning house, releasing emotional baggage. Yeah, but we're talking about Avalon here. So the deck didn't jive with me. And I'm hoping when I get them all cut that, this one's a little bit odd too, that I can really get this thing to do more than it was doing sitting on the shelf, collecting dust, and I was not reading with it. So just a little thing I can put out for today that maybe will bring somebody a little bit of inspiration, that they too can look at their shelf, look at their cards and say, you know, I'm not using that sucker. How else can I make it work for me before I pass it on or donate it to the thrift store? Everybody, you know, just, it's all about using your decks and not letting them sit idle. So this is one way that you can do it. And if I can do it, you can do it. No problem.